Hello，你好，欢迎回来，Welcome back to Wisdom Wednesday with Johnny Tiger on January 20, 2021. No cool oriental music today, and you are not looking at me, you're looking out the window, sort of like Soul Search Sunday. It is because I'm kind of pressed for time today. Been helping my friend Kevin with some emergency issues today, and he just stepped out to go fetch us some dinner, and I thought I better roll this episode out because I don't know when this night is going to end, and I kind of don't want to have to rush for two videos tomorrow. So, going to keep this relatively short and don't have any time to really set up for music and to look proper in front of the camera um, and all that stuff. But we're still going to do a Wisdom Wednesday. I'm going to tell you about how in the Chinese culture, different people, different professions, they fan themselves differently. And this is really interesting because, of course, you don't see that today anymore because most people don't really carry a fan around with them much. I mean, my beautiful girlfriend, she actually does. She loves those Oriental fans. But you just don't see that many people carrying fans anymore nowadays. Um, but in the old days, and not that long ago, I mean, we're only talking about maybe 100 years ago in China, almost everyone would carry a fan on their person, and depending on that person's career path, their profession, the fan they carry look different, and how they fan themselves were very specific. And here are a few of the more interesting ones. One, if you were a scholar, if you were a scholarly person, you would fan at chest level. Why at chest level? Well, this is because most of the time, people who are scholars, they like to write a lot of lyrics and poetry and verses, and usually the nearest thing they can write on or draw on is a fan they carry. So a lot of them have really individualized looking fan that they will do their artwork on. So when they take out their fan and are fanning themselves, they want this to be something that look good. They want other people to be able to admire their artwork. So they do a very slow back and forth fanning just at chest level so people can just look down a little bit and say, hey, that's a nice looking fan you got there. What is that? Is that a dragonfly you painted on your fan? That's cool. That's how they were able to catch people's attention. So if you were a scholarly person, you fan yourself at the chest level. Number two, if you were a quote unquote warrior, now I'm not talking about like warrior like walk around with a sword or stuff like that, but any kind of like more physical type of person, like a policeman, soldier, uh, um, constable, um, or stuff like that, uh, or a martial artist, you fan yourself at the belly level. Uh, this is because for a lot of warriors, especially in the old days, warriors they didn't have the trim and narrow-waisted look that people seem to think what warriors should look like back then. Warriors are big and they were big all over, big chest, big arm, big belly, everything. So the belly was the one part of a warrior that the warrior tried to conceal a little bit because otherwise they look kind of pudgy. So a lot of time when they're fanning themselves, and warriors will carry these huge fan, like maybe 2 meter, like not 2 meters, sorry, 2 feet across, the huge leather fan that they fan in front of their belly level, so it conceal their belly but still show their big arms and the big chest and the big shoulders. Government officials, especially uh, officials that uh, guardsmen and people who were uh, uh, like court people, people who have to attend court, like squires and assistants in the imperial court. These people they fan themselves at around their sleeves. Now you got to remember a lot of Chinese people back then wore garments that had really wide, really big sleeves. So what they would do, because obviously if you're standing there at attention while a court procedure is going on, you can't just pull out a huge fan and start fanning yourself when you get hot. No air conditioning back then, and it can get really hot and muggy in court. But if you pull out a huge fan and start fanning yourself right there, then it's like contempt in court. You can get into trouble for that. So a lot of these official people, what they would do is they would carry a tiny little fan, like maybe the size of your hand. That's it, and they would cross their arm and then they fan themselves gently at around their wrist, at the opening of their sleeve, and that would generate enough uh, air current to cool them down a little bit. Actors, narrators, people who uh, uh, sing or perform, probably podcasters if there was podcasters back then, performers, actors would fan themselves right at in front of their mouth, right in front of their face level. This is because sometimes when you're performing, especially back then, again, there's no special effect. A lot of time when you're performing, you're singing or narrating or reading something for a long time, and it you can get really thirsty, hot and bothered, and your lips get dry, and it doesn't look very good when you just lick your lips on the stage. Doesn't look very professional. So when you fan yourself right in front of your face, it cools you down and it gives your mouth, nostrils, ear, eyes a bit of a ventilation at the same time. While you're fanning yourself, you can lick your lips or uh, blow your nose, whatever. It will get covered up so people can see what's going on. Religious people, monks and nuns, they would fan themselves at the lapel or collar because back then they wore long flowing robes, and for them to fan themselves, again, usually what they would do is they would take their collar, one side of their collar or lapel in one hand and pull it forward a little bit to open up their robe slightly, not like a flasher, but just open it up slightly and then they will fan at the neckline, the collar level. This way, allow them to keep their dignity, still look dignified, while they can cool down a little bit. Last but not least, matchmakers. Now, these days, matchmaker is no longer a profession, but in the old days, Chinese matchmakers were very important. They were like a very important branch of society because back then a lot of marriages were arranged. So you needed professional matchmakers to go from house to house to get these things happen, get these marriages happening. So matchmakers would go to, let's say, the Lee house and say, "Hey, your son is getting to be a big boy, and I know the Mr. Wang's daughter is about the same age, and she's looking for someone. And what do you think? Do you think that your son would be interested? Would you like to see a picture or portrait, and so on and so on?" So these professional matchmakers, they would usually carry a very, very colorful fan made out of peacock feathers with all kind of different colors on it, and they constantly fan themselves around their shoulder. So they would, when they're talking to you, they would kind of cross their arm and then slowly fan uh, beside their shoulder area. Now, this was not because they were hot, but this was made, this is an old psychological trick to have that colorful fan on the side, just constantly moving a little bit to draw your attention. So you might not ask a lot of the hard to answer questions, and you may agree to their terms a lot easier. It's a device to captivate, to divert your attention away from what they're actually telling you, or from what they're not telling you. So that is the Wisdom Wednesday for today. It's short, but I hope it was entertaining as usual. We'll be back again tomorrow for Toy Thursday. For now, have a good night and 再见.